Little pause. Hey everyone, it's Jerry at the Fledge. Welcome to another episode or discussion about 10,000 Fledges. And I've got Megan and Ryan with us here today from Madison. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty well. Doing well.
Doing good.
So you told me you took a walk and did a little yoga, and I still got this tension in my back, and
Yes.
think that's on my schedule for today. So
Noticing it is an important first step.
what is
Notice that it's 10.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It usually starts with my teeth have been grinding or something like that.
Oh yeah.
So you guys got some topics you want to talk about, and you're gonna hit me with them, right?
Yeah. You ready?
All right, I am ready.
Okay, cool. So
got the timer going.
Okay,
yes.
Sounds good. So as part of 10,000 Fledges, what we're, you've said in the past, like, this isn't you controlling it all. We're taking a model that's worked well in Lansing and sharing it. And so my question to you is, what is the Fledges model? What is it that we're implementing?
Well, I think it starts with some of the basic beliefs that we've talked about. The radical inclusion is super important because it creates that diversity that we want. And that diversity is so important because it creates the resilience that we want. And when that cycles around and if you just have that radical inclusion by itself and you get large groups of people together, your brain gets so much bigger, and it's not, you create a resiliency because, if you're only selling t-shirts and the economy goes down and nobody wants t-shirts anymore, there's nothing to substitute it for. Or if you're, only getting donations, but you don't have a way to make revenue, then when people have less money to donate, you don't have a backup plan. So, in a lot of ways, diversity creates that backup plan for you, but it also makes you smarter. There's a reason that, we talked about adding maybe another person into the 10,000 Fledges discussion. And, the three of us right now, we have brains that know these things, that have experienced these things. And we create kind of a Venn diagram when we put our three brains together that isn't just circle on top of circle on top of circle, but it's spread out, right? We know some similar things. You two know some different things that I don't know. Ryan and I know some things that maybe Megan doesn't know, from a software world or whatever. And you know some things from a statistics world that maybe I don't know. But you get what my point is. It's this Venn diagram. And so if the radius is kind of the measure of the power of that brain, then that radius gets bigger when the three of us are together. And if we add a fourth, then it gets bigger. And so that, bigger brain kind of strategy with diversity is super important. And by byproduct of that, you also get equality and equity, because even if we always judge, I think, not us, but society judges people on a paradigm of intelligence that, might be against a standardized test. And Einstein has that famous quote that if you measure a fish by their ability to climb a tree, they're always going to fail. But when you measure a person and their brain, if I can keep using that, it's starting to sound a little too out of touch with the actual person. But if you measure a person by some standard that we all have as this paradigm, that paradigm probably came from like an educational system that was trying to prepare us for a factory job or an IT job or something like that. So we have this false sense of what we think is productive, what we think is intelligent. but some of the gems could come from a 4-year-old or from somebody who maybe didn't graduate from high school but has been out on these streets their entire life and can really teach me a lesson about compassion or kindness or what a homeless person needs. So to not discount any brain makes you smarter, but it also makes you more equal and more equitable. And so you get that, um, you get, a lot of companies want to be diverse because it's trendy. They don't appreciate the power of that bigger brain. And I think that, if you compare that to biomimicry and you look at a pond usually doesn't have a big net installed over it that no seed or pollen or fish being dropped by a bird, things show up in the pond that the pond didn't expect. And when that happens, the pond gets richer, it gets more activity. Sometimes it's evasive and it can be really bad, but most of the time it's not. They find the synergistic uh, kind of relationships. It gets symbiotic, and the pond gets much stronger and much all the species benefit from sometimes a new species, as long as it's not a invasive kind of parasite.
Mhm.
So that's one thing in the model. The second thing in the model is not really having rules. And that really tries to drive home, our friend David Smith calls it that yes mentality. I want to say yes to everybody as much as I possibly can, because when you walk into a Fledge, you should feel safe. You should feel secure. You should be able to stand up in the balcony and yell whatever you want to yell about yourself and not have any fear that somebody's gonna, oh, that's stupid or that's wrong or a girl can't do that or a boy can't do that or you can't be gay. And that is, you're gonna go to hell. It can't be that. It's got to be safe. And if it's safe and if it's diverse, then the ideas that seem impossible start to make sense and you start to see resource gather around you. And by doing that, you start to come up with solutions that are stronger and more sustainable and, better thought out, if you will. And it's not just one person trying to, beat the war on poverty or make this business. It's a community that's building it up and making it happen. And then, doing things with projects that have meaning that, when we write code to, measure the particulates inside of the Fledge, yeah, that's really cool technology. And at the highest level, we had a bunch of people we got together, including kids. We wrote some code, we did some hardware, and we made something really cool out of it. But the other thing that happened was we made relationships, we made camaraderie, we were entertained. I mean, nothing feels better than putting that puzzle of code and hardware and all of that together, and then it works. And now you're a team, and now you did that. And once you start to build that, then the projects that you lay on top of an organization or a group of people like that just seem less atrocious, more achievable. And you get confidence, you get self-esteem, all the Maslow things come out, and that connection, makes that serendipity happen. So I think that's probably the gist of the model. Now there's a billion other things in there that, like how to build a Fledge, I think is an important part of that. And that's where, it doesn't have to be an old church. It doesn't even have to be a place, really, I don't think. But it's where can you put something out there? So if it is an old church, I put a music studio in there, and that attracted our first people. And because some people in the neighborhood cared about that. but they brought friends that cared about the art studios and they wanted more art. So we added more art. And then they wanted sewing machines, and then they wanted screen printing, and then they wanted 3D printers. And we just listened to the community and we built it based on what the community was interested in. So I'm never going to say, let's make a replica of the Fledge on the east side and put all these, we need 22 rooms and they need to have these things in them. Let's get a building that nobody is using. Let's put something in it that some of the people have expressed interest in. And then let's let the crowd tell us what the next thing is. So, if you're in Madison, maybe you still start with a podcast studio or something like that, and the first podcast is somebody brews beer and they're like, oh, I've got a bunch of hops left over, let's brew beer over here. And let's then some people come to brew the beer and they're like, we should have a kitchen. And so then you do the kitchen, and then all of a sudden you've got a Fledge that doesn't look like this one. It was built with the same strategy. It has the same kind of ethos and values, but it's not a canned solution that the east side of Lansing, with its unique problems, is trying to plop into Madison with their unique problems. So it's built for the problems for the community and by the community. So now the ownership isn't some guy that stands out at the porch that waves at you. The ownership is everybody who's ever picked up a paintbrush, ever picked up a hammer, ever made a decision to organize a room into a podcasting room or whatever.
We were talking to some friends recently about starting another Fledge or what that might be like. And I think I had said, or maybe we both had said, it's not going to be Jerry's Fledge. It's going to be like a Fledge that is authentic here. So maybe like that starts with a meditation class and like folks start joining. And then again, like somebody thinks of something else. So it's so aligned with what you're saying, which feels good.
It's a bit of a relief too, to not to be like, this is what this, like, just let the community build it based on, it's just a lot of freedom. It takes a lot of pressure off. And I'm thinking like, yeah, I can do that. I can let the community do what it wants to.
Yeah. And I also think, and we are out of time, but I want to add one other thing, is that, the incubators, I don't even like calling it an incubator anymore. I just call it a community space, a safe space. I don't want to put those labels on it because it has too much of the evil capitalism tied to it. And I love your starting point, the meditation. See, I didn't think of that. You thought of that. That's the bigger brain. That's the thing that makes it relevant to Madison, or wherever people are. And I just think that was a great example of how this would work. I mean, we just saw it happen. And yeah. So do you want to close with anything? Do you want me to close with anything? Or should we have people tune in for next week for the next topic?
Also, I wanted to say that if someone's watching this video and is interested in what we're up to and is curious about something in particular, like we could answer questions from anybody or do topics that someone might want to hear about in future
for sure
videos.
Yeah. And if you're somewhere and you're thinking about starting some organization that sort of sounds like the Fledge, come join us and let's talk about it. And I'm not even sure I care if we call it the Fledge. It's just a model. It's open source. Joel Walsh in one of his albums said, you bought it, you name it. So we're not selling anything, but it's your thing, man. What's your community want? So it's open source. We want to put the code out there. We want you to benefit from it if you can. And not the code, but I'm using that analogy. Sorry. So yeah, come join us. Come get involved in the discussion. We need a bigger brain, and every single person will make our brain bigger. Good with that?
Yeah. Thank you.
See ya.
All right. Thank you so very much, y'all. See everyone next week on another episode of